hold it up. Hold the mine up. Ah, yours is making yours funky. That's not fair.
That's a last minute improv.
Wait. Mine too.
You have 3 seconds to make it happen. While you guys are making that happen. Hi everybody, thank you for coming back to Coffee with Kyan this week. I know that a few people actually asked me about this portion about having a conversation, especially in recruitment and sales. So I want to piggyback this sort of a last minute project together, invite 3 of my very special people here. Each of them carry a brand of their own, a market of their own, and then there's something very special and unique about them. I'll probably have you guys introduce yourself first before we kick off this conversation about having a meaningful and business-oriented conversation. Shall we start with a little introduction, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm Melissa Howard. I hire people like these guys right here, to come work for IT Works.
Alright, I am Maceo Woods. I am a Salesforce specialist here at IT Works.
I'm Lanise Wafford. I'm the INFOR Lawson specialist here at IT Works.
Cool. So how long have you guys in the staffing or recruitment industry so far?
2 weeks. 2 weeks on this side of the field.
Okay.
So 2 weeks on the hiring side.
I'm a little over a year, about a year and 3 months.
Cool.
Altogether, just under 2 years.
Veteran.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think everybody come from a little different background, and each of us have done a few different things in the past. Let me ask you this question first before we go into our next side of exercise. So before you were coming to recruitment, I know some of us are returning back to recruitment, and then what have you found to be the major difference between working any other things versus specific in staffing, recruitment, or sales?
What I've found is that from what I've previously done, you have to go get your own work, plan your own day. That is key, central part of being successful is your own planning. No one's going to do that for you. You have to do it yourself. Unlike other jobs, your day's planned, you follow a set schedule. So I thought that to be different than everything else I've done.
What I found is in your own natural personality, you have to use that to your advantage to be able to be successful. If you're fake, it comes off as fake. So just being genuine to who you are is what makes a successful recruiter in my opinion.
Okay. How about you?
And for me, it's simple. It's elevating yourself and making sure that you're having those top-tier conversations with people in staffing industry, because you're connecting people with jobs, and you want to make sure they're the right people.
Especially in a very tricky business too. You're finding people who are looking to find people for the people who are looking for people.
Right.
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy doing what we do?
In the people business.
Yeah, as a lot of time I have to sell, even we're still looking for a staff accountant at the moment. I think that hopefully we'll find that superstar. We've talked to many superstars so far, but finding that obviously that it's doing one particular opportunity is not for everybody. So for us, I've identified those talents. It's very, very tricky. And hence that this the art of having a conversation that is effective, that's efficient, but also bear in mind that we're offering a service. We're not selling a product specifically. And these are human beings. They have emotions, they have intelligence, they have other elements besides themselves. We'll have friends and family, some have different age, gender, many different elements, and that will potentially influence the process. So without me without me going too much further, I would like to start with a little bit more about ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of what you found day in, day out, carrying your brand, doing what you do, sales, which I think we do the entire full desk 360. It's all about the sales, really, and also sometimes about the kill, if not always about the kill, and the close. So if you can write down, what do you think would be your biggest self-imposed limitation? That it's there, an element you don't want to go into, but it's when you're on the phone, get that specific moment, that's something always holding you back. What would that be? Have you right now? Don't overthink it. You have 5 seconds while taking a sip of coffee. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think while they're finishing out their thoughts as well how to present what they think that would be their biggest self-imposed limitation that they had to overcome. And then a lot of us that I do want to encourage everybody to explore what that would be. I think some of us we do, some of us we don't, and there are many other self-help. I don't want that to sound actually critical, but and there are many other devices you can help. I always taught a lot of the training that I have mentored, including myself as well. Every now and then, if I haven't been on the phone for a while, I haven't been on camera for a while, I use my iPhone essentially in the selfie mode and just see that what I really sound like right now, or before I impart my sloppy self into others. So shall we flip over the board? What that looks like? So Lanise, tell us about yours.
So for mine, I put overanalyzing tends to be my limitation, which comes off as being timid because I'm thinking in my head about what should I say next, what do I need to say to get my point across, and it comes off as me being timid because I'm in my head analyzing the next thing I'm going to say.
It's funny because I'm glad you mentioned that because you do come across timid, but you are not. After knowing, especially when hearing your conversation, you are not. You're just really thinking and processing that. People thought that you are being timid, but you are not.
Yeah.
So on the receiving end, how do you think that the people would feel?
Can you say that?
Like if I feel you're timid, what potentially other thing I'm thinking?
That I'm not confident. I don't know how to do what I'm doing.
Cool. So most of you have talked to Lanise. I think I've shown many different sides of her, but having a business conversation is very important to know that you're aware of the situation. And going from that point, Maceo.
Mine is a little more physical. My biggest limitation is making the first call in the morning. It is. Once I get going, I'm going. But after the first call is always the toughest for me because it's early. I want to make sure my voice is right, and then just the nerves. I get really nervous before the first call. So once I get that out the way, I'm smooth sailing.
So what happens if your first call turns out to be the most difficult call for the day?
Oh.
I'm sure that happened.
It's happened before. It's happened. I just take it as first call jitters. I've probably led the conversation that way because of the nervousness I've had on the first call. But I just kind of put that to the back of my mind and don't let it ruin the rest of my day. Just kind of keep moving. And, I may try to connect with them the next day, later on in the day, where I can, better suit their needs and, better take control of the call. So.
Cool. What about you, Miss?
I'm editing my. There we go.
Cheating, basically.
I'm not cheating. I just wanted to edit it. There's a difference.
What's
here.
yours?
Me not having experience in staffing, I feel, is my self-imposed limitations. There are times where I'm having conversations with people, and they may have 15 years in technical recruiting or 15 years, and I'm trying to get them and talk to them about why this is a great opportunity for them and why I have a great opportunity for them. And it's difficult to navigate through that sometimes.
I know you and I had the conversation recently as
We
well.
did.
A lot of them is really self-experimental. I'm glad actually each of you are aware of what yours is, especially know it right on top of your mind as well, and know that there are elements that you know how to gradually overcome that.
Right.
Some of them are easier to knock down, and some of them just a matter of you come a little bit of feel the words that's going to help you to change that image. A lot of time we talk about first impressions, so on and so forth. Good. So next step is I'm gonna flip the table entirely around. What do you think that on the receiving end, people having a conversation with you, that's gonna get as your top strength or the things that you leave the brightest or the most positive impression of talking to Lanise, of talking to Maceo? Thinking about your audience specifically, especially having a one-on-one conversation in a business setting, what do you think the recipient get as their number one key trait that's positive from talking to you?
A key trait about me.
And in reality, really, a lot of us are afraid of tapping into the things that we don't want to tap into. And sometimes our self-imposed limitation may come from that. Forbes magazine had an article that was published back in October 2013, which I will share after this video gone live as well, about the 13 specific techniques of how to have a conversation that would help you to build that meaningful impression of potentially meaningful content, and also walk away with a meaningful credibility too. So, shall we talk a little bit about something, a little pat on our back?
Cool.
We'll start with Lanise again.
I would say knowledgeable. Simply because I when I first got here, I had no idea what my market was all about. So listening to every person that I talked to and hearing what they're saying and then repeating it back to them to get that, yes, that's what I'm talking about, has as every time I talk to a new candidate, I'm more and more knowledgeable because I know what they're talking about. I can ask questions specifically geared towards the answer that I'm trying to get about their experience. So I would say knowledgeable.
Cool. Maceo?
Mine would be confidence. The way I project myself on the phone, the way I elevate myself, and showing the candidate that I know what I'm talking about. You know, when they get off the phone with me, and I've heard this a lot, you know, they say, you know, you sound really confident what you're doing. And I am, because this is what I do. I'm a specialist at what I do, so I take a lot of pride in what I do. So when you get done talking with me, you're going to know that I mean what I say what I mean, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do.
Kudos.
Yeah. Both of you. Ooh.
I actually care. I genuinely care about not only their interest and what they want out of a position, but what they want out of life. What are their goals? And a lot of that has been fine-tuned for just the skill set of being a person in my position as well. But yeah, showing that, hey, you're telling me you have a couple of kids, you're having vacation. Where are you going? Where to? Really? And remembering that too.
And how do you tie that back into the business sense though? Because a lot of time we talk about salespeople getting too chatty,
right.
Or how do you tap into the personal space without people feeling offended? I think that's a question for all three of you.
I think you start out by simply talking to them, getting in the groove of the conversation, find the common interest between you two, and stating your purpose and why you're there, and then just really letting it flow, letting it have a natural flow, that natural conversation into it. So I think that's how you tie it in. And when they can see that you have the genuine interest in them, they're more willing to open up. And so all of the other questions kind of come natural.
Yeah, and basically listening. If you're doing too much talking, you're not really listening to the candidate, so or the client, so you would never really find that common ground, and you kind of get away from what your actual purpose was. You know, and truth be told, the conversation is for you to listen. You know, we said around here all the time, you have two of these for a reason and one of those. You know, so you have to listen. Once you listen, you know, it's said a lot, and it's true. You know, so the more you listen, the more you allow them to elaborate about what they're needing or what they're wanting or just their day. It carries values in your personality. It carries value as your credibility that you genuinely care about them. So.
Yeah.
I think it's about setting the tone and building trust. Giving them the knowledge that I'm not talking to you to see if you're good enough to help me out, but how I can assist you rather. So.
It's really like artists, for example, when they start a painting a picture, it's always about that foundation.
Right.
And a lot of time is how we set that tone. Obviously, we have our little business secret about how we start our call.
That's right.
But at the end, it's really helping to paint that foundation, and the rest is afterwards. What do you do next? It's got to be able to find that starting point. So let me put it this way. The next question to you all: if what do you think that would be the number one priority that for you to know that walk away from from a call you're about to make it meaningful? If you have to pick one thing, what would be your number one priority? There's no right or wrong to this answer.
Is it priority as far as what you want to get out of it, or
exactly? What would you
want them to get out of it, or what you want to get out of it?
I think probably I would set the scene for you specific. That's a good question. I'll set for you because obviously we're in sales, right?
Yeah.
And we know that in order to make this conversation meaningful, ideally for both, what is the number one thing that you need to do for yourself based on what you experience should make this a successful and meaningful call for you?
Okay.
I don't want to give away obviously your own personal secret on how you do. I think that our audience are curious to find out more about what your secret sauce is. Especially audience have talked
to because people might be expecting that.
We want them to actually explore and potentially challenge us as well.
Okay.
And I think Maceo brought out a great point. I think everybody agreed to. It's really the listening piece is it can be very difficult because a lot of times that we try to sell, a lot of time we're trying to almost make or force something happen. A lot of people think that salespeople are so manipulative into the conversation, showing what they want. But how do we balance that out as this is a mutual conversation, me talking to you, interacting with another individual, make it a mutual peer-to-peer conversation. That's gonna be very interesting, actually.
I want to put this, but I don't want to, you know.
Backfire.
You know. Start with them. I'll get it together. Go. Start with them.
Okay.
Lanise.
What I always want to gain from the call, I want to learn about each and every person's experience, and it's not always so I can see, what type of role can I get you into next. It's so that I can better understand what's going on in the market and where people are. And by the end of that call, I want that candidate or that client to know, I'm genuinely interested in being an expert in my market, and talking to you helps me do that. So.
Okay. That's very important. That ties into the whole content of the call, basically. What about you, Maceo?
I like to establish that I am just not an ordinary recruiter. They receive calls, client calls, candidate calls all day from countless of different agencies, and I have to set myself apart. So at the end of the conversation, I need them to understand that I am not your average recruiter. I am a specialist. This is what I do. So I'm going to spend countless of hours working on your behalf. So don't treat me like a regular recruiter. Just give me information and hang up and forget about it, because I'm not going to forget about you. So that's what I like to set the tone before I get off the phone.
Yeah.
Sounds like an ex-boyfriend you just can't get rid of. But obviously elevate from that.
Sorry, that hit a lot. That hit real close to home.
And if you're watching, please like and share.
They're not my friends on Facebook. Helping, what I wrote, helping bridge the gap between helping them bridge the gap between achieving their personal goals and their current situation. And essentially, if they've been in their current situation for more than 5 years and they're not nowhere in track to achieving their personal goals, helping them say, well, how can I help you get to that level, get to that moment, get to that situation for you?
How do you know that through this entire process, all that we have talked about so far can help you stay on track of what you're looking to get to? Because sometimes conversation could be 30 seconds.
Right.
Sometimes it could be an hour. How do you help yourself stay on track from what you're looking to get out based on what you wrote down?
You make sure you're direct. You make sure you have that goal in mind. So I know by the end of the conversation, if they're trying to rush me off the phone, I can straight up get to the finishing touches of what exactly do you want? What are some of your goals? What haven't you achieved in your current situation that you would like to achieve in the next 5 years? Midterm, short-term, long-term goals. And helping them get there faster.
Good point. Being direct.
Extremely.
With me, I just like to reiterate what I do and how I'm going to be able to help them, either fill a need or find a need. So that's what I do. I just kind of reiterate my specialty, what I've done, and what their experience with other recruiters they didn't like. Sometimes we miss that not asking them what they don't like, and they'll let you know, or they didn't have enough feedback, or they just took my resume, I don't know where my resume is at, And so if you want to set yourself aside, you need to not do those things. So
And be better at it.
And be better at it, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, I think the question is how do you stay on track based on what you wrote down throughout the entire conversation? Sometimes it gets out of hand.
Got it. Okay. So I I listen first, and I let them get out what they really want to get out, and then I find a way to tie that back in and get it back to where I'm going. So, it could be two completely different topics, and I'll kind of repeat back to them what they said, and then say, but on this side, ask them a different question related to it somehow. I tie it back in. So.
Sometimes we talk about the technical things, and then we eventually become talking about the people, and then people turn into family, turn into the trips, what you're doing this weekend, and then turn into something else. Oh yeah, so is calling out. By the way, we need to backfill that position with a contract position, and they completely divert that conversation into many different elements. That taking that control, which we talk about a lot, is I think essentially is key to help you also bring things back into based on what you're looking to get out for yourself. So how hard is it to stop talking?
You want us to write that down?
If you think that, who has the issue of doesn't know when to stop talking? Please take a sip of your coffee.
I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
Who also have struggled with not being able to stand silent on a call?
What do you mean by silent?
It depends on the placement of that silence, though.
I agree a lot.
I like the silence.
I do that. I agree a lot. So I guess I'll be guilty because I just don't be quiet. I feel like me agreeing or saying, okay, I'm engaging, that I'm not getting bored with the conversation.
Or I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just writing down. So that's the opposite.
Which is a great trick.
Yes.
I want to make sure I do it correctly. Just writing information down. Excuse me. To take that moment. Because I think that's key. It's funny that because a lot of us came from a various background that we had to talk a lot, and some of us are natural talkers, and then I can't stand a moment of silence. You think you always have filled in the blank. Do you think that how detriment and how suicidal that would be in the sales, or especially having a business call?
Of not being able to fill in that blank?
Not being able to shut up.
Not being able to shut up.
Or stand a moment of silence.
You make the person on the other end lose their train of thought when you're talking, so they end up going off on a totally different direction after you finish saying what you're saying.
You can lose your effectiveness too. You lose your effectiveness.
Over talking it.
Yeah, over talking it, overselling it. You can lose your effectiveness, and sometimes people just don't. They lose after 5 minutes. Like, you're still talking. Your attention is gone from you. Then you lost your point.
Like they get bored with you after a while. Listen to you talk. And a lot of when we're, we'll be feeling, hold on, I didn't call you, you called me. So the attention needs to be on me instead of you taking all the attention on your own. So
don't forget that who is the call really is about.
Right.
And obviously determine this percentage of how much is about you based on the purpose of what you call, also from the other person specifically. One thing I mentioned actually on my day one in most of my training session, that I think in earlier part of my career before I start mentoring somebody else, or even in my early mentoring stages, I think several have worked with me in the past, is this is an element I later add on to my career. I think I actually talked to all three of you about it before. How important is it to be vulnerable?
Extremely.
yeah, you have to be.
Extremely, because if you're placing that expectation on the person that you're talking to and that person that you're having that conversation with, you're placing that expectation to be vulnerable. For them to be vulnerable, you have to give. You have to give.
It's a give and take. Definitely give and take.
It's funny because I mentioned the word vulnerable. Do you think it's about making the other person vulnerable, or you yourself being vulnerable?
It's you. It's you. I think when you bring that sense of vulnerability behind it, it opens up the door for them to be vulnerable completely.
Yeah, that's the trust building.
Right. That's
And behavior breeds behavior.
Exactly.
Hopefully that impart into something, a spark that was never there before.
Right.
By you being vulnerable. It's a tricky thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Anybody have any example they would like to share about being vulnerable? Either it could be embarrassing, or it could be mind-opening, or it could be a career-changing moment.
Everybody's looking at me.
I was looking at you to see what you guys have.
I saw you guys go there.
I have a couple in the business aspect, specifically. I know that I talked about just my previous position, and I talked about my experience as a nanny to one girl, and she came and let me know how she had that experience as well. And it was a life-changing moment for her because she felt she didn't feel confidence going into her next job. And so that in turn, I was able to talk to her about that. Well, look, I'm just starting here at this job now. It's my first week here, and I understand that transition. I understand that phase, and I understand how it is. And this is how, and giving her advice to elevate herself, even in that, like, these are the skill sets you've learned from this. Like, you've gained this opportunity, you gained this position. So it's something that you can go into further. That's just one example.
Mine would have to be when first introduced to my market, letting certain candidates know that I'm not new to what I do. I'm new to your market. So you kind of have to put your pride aside and be willing to learn about it.
Swallow that pride.
Yeah, swallow it up and not make it seem like you know everything. So when you can show that type of vulnerability to somebody that's understand and has been in your shoes because they wasn't born knowing how to use Apex and Visual Force, they have to learn it too. So they understand that it's a learning curve. This is their specialty, and majority of them would love to tell you how it's done. You just have to put the pride aside and just kind of let them know that I don't understand this, and explain to me a little more about it. And if you can't do that, then you're basically a wall not willing to give, and they're going to look at you as a wall instead, and it's going to be tough to develop that trust there.
Great. Introducing Matt James, a secret icebreaker.
I would say a specific example I have of a sort of vulnerability. I had a candidate I was trying to get placed. That candidate ended up not getting the job after their second interview, and I shared that emotion with him. Instead of being like a lot of recruiters that are just really sorry you didn't get the job, we'll try again someplace else. I shared that disappointment with him because it would have been a great change for him and his family. So I let him know, I know this is what you're looking for. I've still got your back. I know, you really want to be near your kids more often. So just letting him know I actually really cared about this just as much as you did.
Having that genuine interest.
Yeah, and that really is the key. A lot of people think that, oh well, you don't care if I didn't get a job. That's really not true. We've had countless conversations before, and we put in so many man hours looking for a position. We're just as hurt, not just from a money aspect, because we knew what it was going to do to your life. We know
because you care.
Exactly, we really care about you and your well-being. So,
especially within your market, I think that's very crucial. One big point I do want to pinpoint down on the other side of the things is a lot of the corporate recruiters and then or agency recruiters in that regard too, we got into such a pigeonhole routine, especially that some of us all have done the high volume type of things. So it becomes so much more of, I'm sorry you don't have 5-year experience, I'm sorry you don't have enough experience, sorry you don't have a bachelor degree, we're looking for only bachelor degree only, or sorry you're not currently authorized to work in the US, so and so it becomes so much of a harsh rejection. But versus obviously people think information do change. If you have 1-year experience, keep working in the same field, 5 years from now you'll have 6 years experience. So how does that piggyback into you actually care about? If you really are in here for the long haul, I think there are a lot of things that for us to all improve and experience as we grow in our profession. And that actually plays on both sides of the corporate recruitment side of things, talent acquisition, also in agency recruitment, especially you're in it to stick to and build a brand and then a name for yourself. So now I'm leading to my very last topic, which is if you have a words of advice to anybody who's looking to break into the sales / staffing / recruitment / business development side of the things, about how do I go about making a sales calls, what advice do you have for everybody who's watching this session so far?
Are we writing this down?
I think we can talk it through. If you have an illustration, by all means, go at it.
I would say you definitely need perseverance, because at times it can seem like nothing's ever going to happen, but you just have to keep keep going with the same amount of energy and effort as if everything was going on a high. So definitely need perseverance.
Okay, perseverance.
Yeah, definitely perseverance. Especially during the call, let it flow. Let it flow. Have a list of what you want to talk about, but let the genuine conversation flow. When you do that, you tend to get more out of a call, and then you actually build an actual relationship with someone instead of just answer, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Nobody wants to do that.
Yes, sir.
So if you just let the conversation flow, let it gradually build, you'll realize that you may not be able to place that person, but that person will actually recommend you to other people just because you just allow things to flow and you develop a relationship with them on a personal level and not just a business level.
Yeah. I agree. I piggyback off of them too, and add another element: make mistakes. Make mistakes,
Yes.
and I mean that loosely. I mean that loosely.
Hopefully you're watching.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're a candidate or client. You're not doing not
Right.
become the mistakes.
Right.
But
Don't become
this is
mistakes.
important.
But make mistakes, and one of the things that our CEO is that tells us and explains to us is when you're having those opportunities to make those moments to mess up, you will know what it takes to succeed. You will feel that pressure. You would feel that first call. If that first call isn't successful, then you know, like down the line, wow, that hurt. They hung up on me. They didn't want to talk to me. I thought this candidate was going to be a great fit, and they said no. You know what that means, to have that fail and to have that mess up. And so you can proceed to strive for that excellence, strive for making it work, strive for making it happen. So,
Make it happen.
Make it
making
happen.
it happen.
And don't forget to elevate yourself. There being other secret we'd like to share, and then please look at our YouTube link. I will be posting several other tricks and then several really powerful sources. So cheers, guys, to a great business conversations. We'll talk next week. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
This part.
Gotcha.